Hello and welcome to another philosophy video. In this video, I'm going to discuss animal rights, utility, virtue, and veganism. Essentially, this lecture is about ethical veganism. I have other lectures on ethical veganism, but it is such an important question. It's such an important ethical question that deserves a lot of discussion. Now, in this particular lecture, I'm going to touch upon many different topics. And I can't do justice to each one of them thoroughly, but I think that the lecture itself is a fair representation of the animal ethics position. Now, let me begin by the moral status of animals. Many people claim to be animal lovers. Now, of course, not all people. Some people say animals don't mean anything. They might be cute, but they exist for my own enjoyment or entertainment or food or scientific experimentation. However, there are many people who recognize that animals are not just objects, but there are individuals. Too many people, I think, have the wrong idea about animals. And I want to demonstrate that animals are not here, they're not created for us to be tortured or experimented on or eaten. Typically, those people who think that animals are objects that we can eat and use and exploit think so because they are not, because animals are not human beings. Or for, as I will show, some other unjustified excuses. I think that animals deserve a moral consideration, and most people do not think about it and do not give the right moral consideration. It is very hard to do it, and I understand why. Well, one of the reasons is because, as many thinkers argue, an individual can be wronged in a moral sense only if that individual has an understanding of morality. And animals typically don't have an understanding of morality. Therefore, we don't have any moral obligations to them. While other thinkers believe that it's a matter of satisfaction of preferences, for example. And that would include animals, certainly, because animals do have preferences. But of course, many people would object that although animals do have preferences, those preferences are not as important. And as I pointed out, many people believe that we have no moral obligations at all to animals. But what I would like to point out, as I always point out, as I am a professional philosopher, I wanted to say, if philosophy has taught us anything, is that we must systematically question all our beliefs. Everything that we think that is unquestionable must be questioned. The idea that human beings are morally superior and therefore they can do whatever they want with animals. They can cook them, they can kill them, chop them up, because animals are a different species. It's called speciesism. Now, the term has been popularized by Peter Singer, but in reality, it was coined by Richard Ryder in the 1970s. What is speciesism? If you think about it, it's a very clever notion, speciesism. It's the idea that we are prejudicial when it comes to other species, specifically when it comes to animals. The reason why most of us have no compunction about whether animals are turned into food or experimented on in laboratories is because they don't think very highly of animals. They're just animals. Even the term itself is used as pejorative, being an animal. You are just an animal. In other words, they don't count. And if they do, well, they count just as maybe a little more than puppets and rocks and furniture, but not very much. But this is a prejudicial attitude. Just like racists discriminate against other individuals on the basis of, well, race, or other people discriminate against other people on the basis of a variety of things: sex, gender, sexual preferences, height, and so on. Speciesism is just another form of prejudice, and it is wrong. It is wrong and hypocritical. Hypocritical because if you think that all individuals are equal, they should be equal, regardless of whether they have paws or whether they have feet. Well, one criterion that is used by many thinkers is personhood. Now, understand that personhood is a philosophical or a moral category. Human beings are human beings. They are biologically, they're Homo sapiens. They are what they are. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they are persons. A person is a more complicated concept, not very complicated, but it means that an individual has self-consciousness. An individual thinks about himself or herself as an individual that has many mental activities and preferences, and he or she understands all these truths about himself or herself. Moreover, a person is one who understands, typically has an understanding of morality, and can even choose and enforce moral norms. So the argument might be something like this: animals like dogs and pigeons, cows, don't really do these things. They're not intelligent in that way. They're not persons. But the question is personhood the criterion that we're looking for in morality? What if you're not a person? Now, Immanuel Kant, one of the greatest philosophers in the history of thinking, says the following: the fact that the human being can have the representation I raises him infinitely above all the other beings on earth. He thinks the human beings are special. They are the best that there are. Why? Because they can say I. They have a perspective. By this, he is a person, a being altogether different in rank and dignity from things such as irrational animals, with which one may deal and dispose at one's discretion. And I think that most people who don't see the importance of ethical veganism make the same mistake that Kant made. And I think the mistake that Kant made was to presuppose that moral worth is commensurate upon the kind of creature that you are, specifically if you are intelligent. Here's a problem for personhood. What are you going to do about infants? What are you going to do about small children, the comatose, the severely mentally impaired? All these individuals are, by definition, not persons. They're human beings, but they're not persons. They don't have those mental capacities. They cannot say I. They cannot think about morality and enforce moral rules. So this problem in the literature is known as the problem of marginal cases. This is why I think that personhood does not work. It's an interesting concept, but it's not an important concept ultimately insofar as establishing right from wrong. Now, one response, of course, can be the following. Marginal cases are marginal cases. They are not persons, yet they have moral importance because they are members of our species. Well, that kind of response can be countered by going back to the point of speciesism. Why is it important? Why is human species more important than other species? Well, another one can be that these individuals can have moral consideration, though not direct moral consideration, because they belong to us. They are our brothers and sisters, fathers and mothers, and so on. So that's why we care for them. Animals, on the other hand, we don't have to. We don't have to care about them. However, one problem is that what would you do with orphans? No one, suppose that they're orphans and no one cares about them. Then in that situation, will we be morally justified in, say, for example, use them in scientific experiments? Doesn't seem so. So even personhood is an interesting concept, but it doesn't seem to be an important concept when it comes to assigning moral worth, first of all, and then secondly, when it comes to determining right from wrong. One different approach to the ethics of animals is the rights view. This view was championed by Tom Reagan. Tom Reagan was a great philosopher. He's not with us, no longer with us, unfortunately. He was a very good thinker. He argued that individuals have inherent moral worth. Now, Reagan's argument is more complicated than this. In this video, I'm trying to just summarize the main points of his view. Reagan believed that moral worth is not something that comes in degrees. Either you have it or you don't have it. Either you are a chair or a rock and have no moral worth, or you do. You can't say that squirrels have less moral worth. And so once you understand that moral worth is all or nothing, then you understand that moral worth entails that you have rights. Now, this doesn't mean that animals have all the rights that human beings have. For example, they don't have the right to buy a car and get a driver's license. The rights are relative to the kind of creature that they are. But the bottom line is that animals, just like human beings, have inherent rights. They have an inherent moral worth. And the reason is what Tom Regan calls subject of a life. So for example, you think about it. Why do you think that you are special, that you have moral worth, that you are a moral individual, and you deserve moral respect from others? The reason is not because you're a human being or because you are a special creature. The reason is because you have a complex mental life. You have perception. You see the world. You understand the world, or you try to understand the world. You have desire. You have belief. You have memory. You have intentions. You have plans. Okay? You have a sense of a future and many other attributes. These are the attributes that confer upon an individual moral worth. But when you think about it, Reagan then says, don't animals have the same capacities? Now, forget about the fact that they have that animals' capacities are maybe lesser. They're not as sophisticated as the capacities that we human beings have. We can go to the moon and create computers and write poetry. But it doesn't really matter. The fact is that it's relative to the kind of creature that human beings are. We are the kind of creatures that evolved in such a way that we can create these things. We can do philosophy. We can write poetry and music. It doesn't really matter. Animals did not evolve the same way. Nevertheless, they have desires. They have complex mental lives, complex relative to the kind of creatures they are. They have beliefs. They have intentions. They have compassion even. So why would you not think that those capacities are just as important to them as the way your capacities, your dreams, your beliefs, your desires are important to you? So Tom Reagan concludes that animals, not all animals, by the way, but most animals, the animals that typically people cook, have rights. And one important of which is the right to life. So this doesn't mean that you are never permitted to kill an animal. There might be certain justifiable circumstances, but by and large, you don't have a good moral justification if you want to kill an animal just because you like the taste of the animal's meat, or because you want to experiment on that animal because you don't want to use human beings. Those are not good moral justifications. Another such approach is the one of Peter Singer's. Singer is a utilitarian. It's a different moral system. Now, his moral system is based on the idea of sentience. The idea of sentience is that an individual is sentient if that individual can feel pain or pleasure. So now, based on this idea, then Singer asks, what does it mean to say that something is morally right or morally wrong? Singer answers that right can only mean one thing. It means acting in a way that maximizes happiness for the greatest number of individuals. What kind of individuals? Sentient individuals. And what does wrong, morally wrong, mean? Well, it means that you're acting in a way that brings about suffering. So suffering is bad. happiness and pleasure are good. Okay? Now, when you think about farm animals and human beings, why is it wrong to do certain things to human beings? For example, why is it wrong to kill human beings? And why is it wrong to kill an animal? Same reason, because it causes pain and suffering, and that is inherently wrong. So Peter Singer observes that animal agriculture, well, it doesn't have to be observed by Peter Singer. It's obvious. Animal agriculture, the livestock sector, is a practice that causes an enormous amount of suffering to animals. Therefore, using animals, eating animals should be abolished, to be avoided, because it is wrong. Why? Because it causes pain and suffering. Okay, well, another strategy, another moral approach is, well, my own. I propose that for a variety of reasons, you can read my books and see why I don't completely agree with Singer and Reagan's moral views, ethical views. In my view, ethical veganism, first of all, ethical veganism is not, and I repeat it, it is not a diet. Ethical veganism is a philosophy. It's an ethical view in favor of living without exploiting animals, without cruelty, without pain. The central principle of my philosophy is that human beings, a good human being, is one who behaves virtuously. Your actions, in my view, must be actions that stem from virtue. What do I mean by virtue? Well, some examples, the relevant examples here are justice and compassion and magnanimity. Think about it. If you are just, you cannot possibly think that it is right that we use animals for food. If you are compassionate, you cannot possibly say that animals are food. They can be killed just for your enjoyment. That is not a compassionate way of living. Magnanimity, greatness of soul. A person who exhibits greatness of soul is not a person who needs to use animals and exploit animals. It's not a noble way of living. Let me try to elaborate why. There are billions of animals, trillions of animals every year that are slaughtered for food. What's the reason? Not because people are starving and need to eat food. Rather, because people, well, first of all, because the animal industry is a business. And I guess just like any other business, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. It brings about a lot of revenue, a lot of billions, trillions of dollars for the animal sector. Why should you change it? Right? Same thing for many other things. Oil, the pharmaceutical industry, all kinds of things. Secondly, people have habits. They don't question. It's difficult to question. Philosophy is a difficult subject for this reason, because people never question. It's hard. It takes time to question things. But people like the taste of animals. They are habituated to the taste of animal products, meat and chicken and milk and whatnot. So they do it. The bottom line is that there's no good moral justification. People just do it because it tastes good. Now, you might be thinking, what are we going to do with all those animals? You have to understand that animals are so numerous because of artificial insemination, which means that there are people on farms who masturbate the males, collect the semen, and they impregnate the animals. Otherwise, there wouldn't be enough animals to get around for all buyers who desire to buy steak and eggs and all the animal products that people consume. Now, in my view, artificial insemination is not a virtuous way of living. Masturbating animals and violating animals by artificial, forceful impregnation is not a mark of virtuous existence. This is horrible. This should be stopped. Now, you might be thinking, hey, listen, I'm not the one who shoves my arm into the cow's vagina. So why are you telling me these things? Well, I'm telling you because whether you like it or not, you can live in a dream. You can delude yourself. But as long as you go to the supermarket and buy steak or eggs or chicken or whatever that is, you are part of the problem. It really takes elementary school, not very sophisticated, but elementary school reasoning to understand this concept. Either you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution. You must choose. You must make up your mind. Either you buy meat and you consume meat and animal products and be part of this horrible, horrible practice, or you say no. In the beginning, it might be difficult because you have your habits, and people don't like to change their habits. But this is morality we're talking about. Factory farms and fish farms are horrible places. On factory farms, there are deplorable conditions. Painful. Animals are treated like objects. Animals are cut off their tails, their horns. They're branded, they're castrated, debeaked, all sorts of cruelty. Now you can say, well, why don't we try to not do these practices? Well, it's going to be very hard not to do these horrible things to animals if you have a large industrial factory farm. Obviously, if you have 2 chickens and 2 pigs in your backyard, it's a different story. But at the industrial level, these are kind of inevitable practices. They have to do them. But the point is, as long as you see animals as property, as objects, this will never end. Fish farms are not better than land animal farms, because they are overcrowded. Fish suffer lesions, injuries, because they are overcrowded pools, filthy pools of water that contain fish. Now, these cause diseases, parasites, outbreaks. The COVID-19 is just one example. Now, furthermore, these health problems, must be taken seriously and treated with pesticides and antibiotics. Now, you can say to me, I like the taste of fish, but that's not the point. The point is that for you to have fish for lunch, then there's a fish farm that raises fish and treated parasites with pesticides and antibiotics. And those things go back into the soil, into the waters. So every time you buy fish, you contribute to pesticide and antibiotics, the release of these chemicals into the environment. Now, you might say to me, well, this is your opinion. I don't believe it. You must don't believe me, must do your own research. But don't think that you can say, I don't believe it, and then close your ears and say, la, 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 and that problem is going to go away. It's not going to go away. Now, some people say, well, at least I can drink milk because it doesn't involve cruelty. Actually, the production of milk involves cruelty because, first of all, you have to have cows. You have to forcefully impregnate those cows. You have to take the babies away from them, from their mothers, and feed them formula. Now, in the animal industries, males don't live very long because they're useless. Females are useful because they bear children. So what happens to the baby, the male, is that it's slaughtered right away, right off the bat, very young. You might have heard of a thing called veal. Okay? Now, cows' natural lifespan go to 25 years. Cows are killed at the age of 4 or 5. Furthermore, dairy products are not human food. They derive from milk, which is, well, animals' food, baby animals' food. What about eggs? Eggs involve cruelty as well. As I explained, the males are useless. You don't listen. You don't have to believe me. Do your own research. What do they do to male chicks? What they do is that they take them and they grind them alive, or they suffocate them, they electrocute them, they kill them instantly. They suffocate them because they're useless. What they need is just one male that impregnates all the females, and then you have a bunch of eggs. That's all. The male is useless. There's no reason for the animal industry, for the egg industry, to let male chickens to become adults. You might think that a diet completely devoid of animal products is not a good diet. Well, you might be under a misapprehension, a misconception. According to the American Dietetic Association, as well as many other dietetic associations in the world, according to science, there's no single nutrient that cannot be found in vegetables. Everything that you require as a human being to grow, to thrive, is contained in vegetables. So there are no excuses. You can have a full, satisfactory, healthful diet by eating exclusively vegetables, grains, legumes. Never eat animals. Furthermore, there's a problem. Remember, we're talking about virtue, justice. Just think about it. Is it just to conduct a practice that destroys the environment? Certainly not. And unfortunately, the livestock sector destroys the environment. The world population is growing. The United Nations is already telling us that we don't have enough food for everybody in the world. So what are we doing about it? Well, the United Nations has been begging people to reduce the amount of meat and animal products that they eat, They try to make people eat more vegetables and less meat and reduce it because the world population is growing. And if we don't have enough food now, imagine in 30, 40, 50 years. Now you can say, I don't care about 50 years. I might not be around in 50 years. But your children and grandchildren are going to be around. Another problem is that the land that is required to feed one person for each year is exaggerated compared to the land required to feed a vegan person. Why is that? Because you need lots and lots of land to, first of all, for pasture land. Also, you need land for the animals to live on. And finally, you need land to grow food that will be eaten by those animals. So this is a waste of land. But it's also a waste of food because if you think about it, 70% of U.S. grain is fed to farm animals. People, when I talk about these things, don't understand it, or they just don't want to understand it, don't want to realize it. Look, this is not about what you prefer. This is not about freedom. This is not about taste. This is not about vegans bothering other people. This is not about vegans kill animals in agriculture because they kill rats that roam around fields. This is about growing food that can be fed to human beings who are starving. And yet that food will never touch the lips of human beings because, for example, 70% of U.S. grain is fed to animals, to farmed animals, never will see human beings. So feeding grain to animals is highly inefficient. And it is an absurd use of resources. Understand this. Just this fact alone should make you think, should make you pause and think, maybe I should quit eating animal products right now. Also, another fact that should make you quit is the fact that whether you like it or not, again, you can live in your SpongeBob reality, or you can live in this reality and think about it. By buying animal products at the supermarket, what you do is that you contribute to deforestation. If you say to me, no, you're lying, I'm not doing that. I love trees. I hug trees. Well, I'm sorry to break it to you, but the news to you, if you buy animal products, you're contributing to deforestation. And don't tell me that you don't because you buy only organic meat. That means nothing. That means squat. Animals, animal food, meat in particular, contributes to deforestation. In Central America, 40% of the rainforests have been cleared or burned down in the last 40 years. Why? For cattle pasture. There's no other way around. Think about it. The more you buy, the more they destroy in forests. You can delude yourself and say, this is not my fault, but unfortunately, it is your fault. Also, when you buy animal products, you contribute to a problem. The problem is that we waste fresh water. Animals use too much water. Furthermore, the production of animal products, the livestock sector, as I said, destroys the water by releasing waste into bays and gulfs and killing everything that lives in the water. plants and animals. Once again, this is not a virtuous way of living. You can say that you like bacon in the morning with a couple of eggs. You can say that they taste good. Say whatever you want. Say whatever you will. But don't delude yourself. By buying those products, you're contributing to the pollution of waters. Furthermore, the livestock emits global warming gases. It contributes about 66% of all agricultural greenhouse gases emission in the United States alone. Once again, you might not believe that global warming is true. Some people deny it. That's fine. You cannot deny that animal agriculture causes environmental degradation. It's only up to you. What are you doing? You can be part of the problem or you can be part of the solution. You must choose. Zoonotic diseases, as you know, the COVID-19 and other infectious diseases that are spread between animals and people. These are caused not by plants, but by animal agriculture. Let me end with some bad arguments and excuses. At this point, I know because I've been doing this for a long time, and I know that people hear all these reasons, the environmental degradation, the suffering, but still it doesn't register completely in their brains. And they still think, nah, somehow that must be wrong, I must be right. Many people say to me, I tried veganism, but it just doesn't work for me. Listen, don't delude yourself. Veganism is not a diet, but the ethical view that we ought not to exploit animals because it is, first of all, it is unvirtuous because it causes unnecessary suffering to animals. It causes blood and guts to be spilled all over the place. It is unjust. It destroys the environment. That's what veganism is. Veganism is not a diet. Second of all, if you're watching this video lecture, I'm sure you have a computer, you have internet, so chances are you're not starving. You have enough food. You don't live on a desert island that you need to rely on your goat to survive. Therefore, you have the time, the place, the opportunity to stop, to quit eating animal products. Educate yourself. Find out how to get calories that don't derive from animals. Eat lots of beans, lentils, eggplant, zucchini, lots of vegetables, pasta, grains, rice, whatever you want. Leave animals alone. Vegetables, grain, fruit, eat those instead. They don't cause environmental degradation. They don't cause cruelty. They don't cause suffering. Stop making excuses by saying veganism doesn't work for me. Veganism is not a diet. Some people also have the excuse, I'm an athlete, I need to consume a lot of calories. Well, understand that there are a lot of professional athletes like this lady here, Jahina Malik. She is a vegan since birth. She is a professional bodybuilder. There are professional athletes that consume tons and tons of calories, 5, 6, 7,000 calories a day. They don't eat animals. Where do they get their proteins? From vegetables. Now, I hear this silly argument all the time, but you vegans are hypocrites because veganism kills animals. How? Because when they harvest vegetables, they kill animals. What kind of silly argument is this? First of all, meat eaters eat vegetables too, so they double destroying, right? Doubly immoral because they not only do they contribute to the death of animals, billions, trillions of animals, but also the death of those animals that they accuse vegans of killing. Also, there's another excuse. Humans have been eating meat for millions of years. But listen, that only proves one thing, that humans have been doing something wrong for millions of years. It doesn't prove that human beings have been doing something moral. Just because you've been doing something for a long time, it doesn't prove that it is moral. Think about how racism has been going on for a long time. That doesn't prove that racism is right. Other people try to use the religious argument. They say God created animals for us. They don't have a soul, or any argument like that. No, I'm sorry. That's wrong. In most religions, God says that human beings have to be compassionate and loving to all living creatures. God doesn't say anything, doesn't condone animal agriculture, artificial insemination, torturing animals, using animals for science. Find any religious book or any religion that says that it is okay to torture animals, to cause them pain and suffering just because they taste good. Obviously, the silliest of all the arguments is the meat has proteins. But think about it. If meat were the only place where you get proteins, then think about cows. They eat grass all day. Gorillas, they don't eat steak. Horses, they're very strong. They don't eat animals. They don't eat meat. Where do they get their proteins? Another silly argument that I heard is fish has omega-3. But where do fish get the omega-3? They have to get it somehow, right? Now, if you say by eating other fish, but then where's the other fish that is eaten by the fish getting omega-3? Just think about it. And finally, the worst of all the excuses is what I eat is my business. Don't come here and tell me what I should and what I should not eat. Well, I'm sorry to break the news to you, pal, but if your behavior or your diet causes suffering and environmental degradation, it is no longer your own business. You might think so, but it is no longer your business. It's the business of other people too. If you contribute to environmental degradation, it's not your business. It's my business as well. Another big excuse that I hear all the time, veganism is expensive. Okay, you're not hearing what I'm saying. Veganism is not a diet. But if you think that veganism is expensive, ask yourself, if you had only $100 and you had to survive for an entire week, what would you buy with that $100 bill? Would you buy a bunch of rice, beans, potatoes, broccoli? Or would you buy steak, cheese, lobster, fish, eggs? Just think about it. The bottom line is this. Any way you slice the cake, if you are a meat eater, you contribute to this horror. You contribute to more blood in the world. You contribute to more cruelty in the world. You contribute to practices that are unvirtuous. They're callous. They lack compassion. They lack justice. They're the opposite of justice. Okay? Cruelty. Premature death of animals. Just for the enjoyment. Just because that particular dish tastes good to you. So in conclusion, I want to say, morality is not something that you can make up on your own and follow your own morality, whatever you think it's better for you and you feel that is more convenient to you. Stop being a crybaby. Grow up. Think about morality seriously. Think about what is wrong and what is right. What is wrong and what is right are not things that are just convenient to you and your family and your friends. Justice is not convenient to you. Compassion is not just something that is convenient to you. If you're serious about morality, you will realize that the practices that are necessary to produce animal products and meat are disgusting. They are immoral. They are unjust. They are callous. They are wrong. Say no to meat and animal products. Become a vegan. That's the only way that you can live a virtuous life and a moral life. You can be deluded and think that if you say to yourself, I only consume humane meat, by using those adjectives, you can delude yourself into thinking that you're doing something right. Adjectives are not going to help you. They're not going to save you. When you exploit other beings, when you destroy the environment, those practices cannot be saved by using any cute euphemism or adjective. They're wrong any way you put it, any way you slice it. Become a vegan. This is the end of the lecture. Thank you very much. I appreciate any comment. And if you have any questions, I will be more than glad to answer all your questions, because there are a lot of questions about this. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next lecture.